The 9/11 memorial turns into nothing but political fodder, as we all knew it was going to. I don't know why anybody's surprised by this, but, well, I guess maybe we still have more faith in the world than maybe we should at this point. But on a plus side, W gets to use his WMD speech once again, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. In other news, Robert Mueller may possibly have helped Saudi Arabia cover up its role in the 9/11 attack, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. The drone strike that went after an ISIS asset may actually have gone after a U.S. contractor, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. And the Evangelical Lutheran Church installs its first openly transgender bishop. It's going to be all this and more on a Marathon Monday, of course, because they can't stop doing stupid stuff in the government. Hey, do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Boy, oh boy, what a weekend. It started with stupid shit happening on Friday. It went on into stupid shit happening for the 9/11 memorial. It went on to the screeching conversation about what's going on with Trump and why he's announcing a boxing match right now. And we'll get into that too. And it ended with just stupidity. Kind of glad that I decided to go out for 4 hours and take a hike yesterday instead of just sitting here and watching this whole thing fucking burn again. But it is what it is. But we have got a ton of news to get to. We've got a Marathon Monday just once again, and I do want to make sure that we do get over and watch Stephen Ignoramus as well, because, you know, he's probably one of my best friends, and I don't want to do too much audience crossover with him. I want to make sure that he's got his audience and they're ready to go, and you can't do that if they're all sitting over here. So we're going to power through this news. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to go from there. But before we get started, head on over and check out my friends who will be working together with me in an upcoming news project that we have going on here. And I am, of course, talking about the Porch Boys, the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Freckles of Brit Show. Go check all those shows out. They are great shows. They are great friends to the network, and they're great people to get your news or your culture stuff from. Would you rather get it from a guy who wears a suit that costs more than your house? Or would you rather get it from people who have to struggle and sometimes worry about the same things that you guys have to worry about? I would rather have the latter, and I hope that you would too, so go and check them out. They're great friends to the news, to the networks. They are great friends all around, and they're great people to have around you as well. So go and check all of them out. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Got some live chat going up on here. Let's see. Starting here with the Dow. The Dow took another minor tumble on Friday. It tried. You can see right there. And we talked about the futures are up, and they weren't. They tried again throughout the middle of the day, and but it's interesting. We're going to read from IBD later on how, you know, you get a week of Dow being in the tank, a full week, by the way, of the Dow being in the tank. It went down every day last week, if you'll remember. A full week of the Dow being in the tank, plus those 245,000 jobs from August, and suddenly we cured COVID. That's one of the things on the headline coming up from IBD here. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. Your Bitcoin is still on sale. They deepened the sale over the weekend here. Let's get a refresh because I pulled this up, I think, on Friday. $44,897 US dollars and 10 US cents is your Bitcoin price. So, like I said, don't pay full price. Never pay full price. If you want to get some crypto, I highly recommend it. Don't spend all your money on it, as usual, but I mean, that's the same thing with anything else you're going to try to do outside of the current U.S. currency. If you're strapped, don't do it. But if you got the 20 or a 30, well, there's no $30 bill, or a 50 or 100 that you can throw at the crypto market, I encourage it. This is not official financial advice, but I encourage you to at least explore it. It's a good thing. Throwing $20 at Doge was probably one of the most fun things I've ever done with $20. But that's what we see going on from that. Let's look in at your metal prices coming in, getting ready to trade this morning. Looks like your copper is up across the board. Your steel is down, and your aluminum is going to be coming back up. Bright copper, $3.58. Copper tubing, $3.32. Flashing copper, $3.23. Wire is $101 a pound. Copper tubing is $3.04 a pound. So, yeah, your national average on your copper is going to be $3.33. Almost everything with iron in it is down. Light iron, number one steel, cast iron, rotors, a complete cast, shreddable steel, stainless steel, all down in the red. And then aluminum, almost all the way across the board, except for rims, is up. Siding's up. Clean aluminum is up. Aluminum radiators are up. Cans are up. Sheet aluminum's up. But rims are down. So hold on to those cans and, well, look into possibly getting rid of some of the steel that you got laying around your yard. All right, let's see what IBD has to say. This is fun. This is fun. I like this one. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Jones futures rise after Apple let epic market rally retreat. COVID cases fall sharply. This is from Ed Carson. Dow futures rose Monday morning, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. The stock market rally retreated last week, with losses picking up steam on Friday. Led by Apple, Google, and Tesla stock, major indices retreated to or below key levels, while some promising new buy signals fizzled. I love that headline, too, by the way. Dow future. Oh, go away, advertisement. Every time. Right about this time, too. Dow futures rise after Apple led epic market rally retreat. COVID cases fall sharply. It's cured, folks. It's cured. There's no more COVID because, well, we've got to hold up another narrative here. On the plus side, new U.S. COVID cases are falling significantly over the past several days. Isn't it funny how that works? You know, within a week, hospitals are overrun by people who won't get vaccinated. What do we do? They're overrun. They're overrun. Oh wait, we panicked everybody. Oh no, everybody's panicked. Quick, cook the numbers down. Now, of course, all of this is assuming you buy the numbers as the news gives them to you, and I don't. It's a fun exercise to see how they do this, to cook the numbers to make sure the economy does what they want it to do, but I don't believe the numbers that are presented to me by the news. I never have, especially the deaths, because there was a lot of death with COVID, not death by COVID. I would probably wager a guess that if somebody were to independently verify every death from COVID with addresses and their medical records, we would find probably, I would say 70,000 COVID deaths. Direct COVID deaths. And possibly several hundred thousand rather, people who died with COVID, not from COVID. But of course, the news is never wrong. Don't ban me, Susan. You should probably watch what I'm saying on YouTube, given the fact that they're getting ban happy over there. I should actually probably watch that a little bit closer. Links in the description for all other video hosting sites that I'm on. Go and check out any one of them, just in case I do get the Wojcicki banhammer somewhere in here. Apple stock sold off on Friday after a federal judge ruled that Apple must develop external payments for app developers, such as Epic Games, creator of the popular online game Fortnite. The Apple Epic ruling also hit Google parent Alphabet, with Google Play revenue also in doubt. Roblox, Unity Software, and Electronic Arts are among the potential winners. Apple and Google stock fell back to key levels, while EA stock neared a buy point. Roblox stock triggered an aggressive buy signal and is close to another resistance area. Meanwhile, Tesla has released its FSD Beta V10 select drivers. To select drivers, CEO Elon Musk said this past week that it will blow your minds, a phrase that he often uses to describe upcoming self-driving features. Democrats also released a plan for big EV subsidies that Tesla will be eligible for, though union-made vehicles would be favored. Tesla stock edged higher in pre-market after falling on Friday to retreat just above an aggressive buy point. Finally, keep an eye on chip equipment makers Entegris, Applied Materials, and KLA. After a month of sideways action, Entegris and AMAT stock flashed early entries. On Friday, before fading, KLA stock flirted with a breakout. The recent market action suggests investors should be a bit more defensive, limiting new buys and perhaps curtailing overexposure. Apple, Tesla, Unity, and Google are on the IBD leaderboard. Google and Entegris are IBD long-term leaders. Entegris was Friday's IBD stock of the day. On your futures, the Dow futures rose 0.6% versus fair value, S&P 500 futures advanced 0.5%, and NASDAQ 100 futures gained 0.5%. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right, let's grab a brief one from CNBC, and then we're going to go talk 9/11, because what a shit show that was. And that's just with the people who used to be in government or are in government. I'm not talking about all the other shit shows that went on across Twitter, except for one that I specifically picked to start off that segment. From CNBC, Dow futures jump 190 points, rebounding from 5 straight days of losses. This is from Hannah Mayo and Pippa Stevens. U.S. stock futures pointed to a market rebound on Monday as the S&P 500 comes off its longest daily losing streak since February. Contracts tied to the industrial average jumped 190 points or 0.6%. S&P 500 futures gained 0.5%, and NASDAQ 100 futures gained 0.5%. All three major averages finished lower on Friday, with the Dow and the S&P posing a 5th straight day of losses, while the NASDAQ registered its 3rd consecutive negative session. For the S&P 500, it was its worst losing streak since February 22nd. For the week, the Dow and the S&P dipped 2.15% and 1.69% respectively, which was each average's worst weekly performance since June. The tech-heavy NASDAQ posted its worst week since July, sliding 1.61%. COVID cases appear to be trending lower in the U.S., with the 7-day average through Friday of about 136,000, down from 157,000 average new cases at the end of August, according to the CDC. Pfizer's COVID vaccine could be authorized for children by the end of the month, sources familiar told Reuters. Names linked to the reopening gains in the pre-market trading: Delta, United, roughly gained 1%. Carnival added 1.5%. Traditional cyclical plays GM and Citigroup rose. MGM rose more than 1% after an upgrade by Bernstein to outperform. Vaccinations plus immunity should mean cases eventually fall. Full reopening and related spending has been pushed out, wrote UBS strategist Keith Parker, who sees the S&P 500 gaining another 4% through year-end, until the point that the American people start to remember what happened in Afghanistan, and they start to get united, and then all of a sudden the Mu variant or the Lambda variant or whatever the fuck the next panic attack the government has up their sleeve when it comes time for control. It was a broad bounce, with tech shares gaining as well. Apple added about 0.8% in pre-market trading. Nike shares ticked lower in pre-market after the BTIG downgraded the stock, citing supply chain challenges caused by the pandemic. Production issues could significantly impact Nike's holiday sales, BTIG says. Good, fuck them. And I still wear a pair of Nikes, but they're old, they're falling apart, and they will not be replaced by another set of Nikes, I can tell you that. The closely watched Consumer Price Index will be released on Tuesday, at which point the street will see how much of the heightened costs are being passed along to consumers. Yeah, we'll be talking about that later on in the day too. Economists surveyed by FactSet are expecting the reading to show that consumer prices jumped 5.3% on an annual pace. In August, retail sales data will be released later in the week. 5% again on inflation. 5% again. Everything's fine. Don't look over here. Inflation? What does that mean? All right, let's talk about 9/11. And I want to start here with this tweet, which this says it all. And this says a lot of the problems that we'll be talking about as we go here, by the way. I thought I had another Daily Wire one. Because I had Psaki stuff, didn't I? Apparently I don't. Let's look into that for just a sec, because I had Psaki stuff. Oh no, I have it all. Okay, good. Yeah, this is heavy on the Blaze and the Daily Wire today. Which I don't like to do, because then people say, oh, you're just echoing right-wing extremist chambers. But a lot of people were not covering some of the stuff that was on the Daily Wire that I thought that you guys would be interested in. But starting here, Vincent Dow tweets out, this is how they're talking about 9/11. And I got this, of course, from PolitiBunny, who quote tweeted this, but this is what they said. Apple News today in conversation. How the 9/11 attacks ushered in an era of fear and mistrust in the U.S. and set the stage for the January 6th insurrection. Full stop. Back the fuck up. The 9/11 attacks didn't usher in an era of fear and mistrust in the U.S., except in a few more conspiratorial people who, some of whom, wound up being right on a few things. Don't get me wrong off that. But no, the 9/11 attacks did not usher in an era of fear and mistrust in the government. If nothing else, they opened the door for people to start worshiping the government. I said, and I tweeted out earlier on this week that... oh Jesus, why is Amy Coney Barrett trending? At 7:30 in the fucking morning. Anyway, no, they really opened up the door for people to start worshiping the government. And we saw this with Bush, and I said, you know, the news media may be accurate, both on the left and right-wing media, that we got Trump because we had Obama. Obama was the reason that we got Trump. And I can see the merit in that, but the worship of the government, the worship of politicians, and the, okay, everything's going to be okay, you just give me all kinds of money and power, that came from W. And Obama took that shit and ran with it. That's the reason we got Obama, and that's the reason we got the version of Obama that we got. He saw a grift where he could go back and he could get all kinds of money and power just by saying, oh, okay, well, if you just give me a little bit more control and give up a little bit more of your freedom, I will protect you forever and worship me. And of course, that's also the reason we got MAGA. For more reason for people that go back and worship the government. So, yeah, there is that. Alright, speaking of W, let's listen to W, shall we? Words that you'd never expect to hear on this channel, but they have to be said right now. Let's go listen to what W had to say.
The security measures incorporated into our lives are both sources of comfort and reminders of our vulnerability. And we have seen growing evidence that the dangers to our country can come not only across borders, but from violence that gathers within. There is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home. But in their disdain for pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols, they are children of the same foul spirit, and it is our continuing duty to confront them. The security measures incorporated into our...
Yeah, he actually just said that. He actually just, I mean, this is the WMD speech. Again, this is the same bullshit that he used in 2002, to try just... No, it was 03, wasn't it? When did they do the march? Oh, it was 03. Yeah, this is the same bullshit that they used in 03 to try to push people into accepting the fact that we were going into Iraq. Oh, well, as long as we're over there, they have WMDs, so we're going to go and we're going to do our military thing in Iraq, and we're going to eliminate those WMDs, and we're going to eliminate Saddam too, because he is the one who's perpetrating those WMDs against citizens. And what did we find in Iraq? No WMDs. But hey, while we're at it, let's go turn the American people against each other. Because it doesn't matter who's fighting. He's one of the political elites. It doesn't matter who's fighting, who's going to war, to this shit stain on fucking history. All that matters is that people are going to war. And then he's going to get more money in his pockets, whether Raytheon is selling arms, heavy arms, and light arms to the national security agencies so they can turn them against the American people, or if they're selling them to the Marines so they can turn them against a bunch of fucking brown people in Afghanistan and Iraq and Saudi Arabia, which we'll be talking about that later on too, over in the Middle East. It doesn't matter to Raytheon. Money is money. That's fucking disgusting. Of course, that man is disgusting too, so let's grab one more from him before we get into some of the news articles that go with this.
And we have seen growing evidence that the dangers to our country can come not only across borders, but from violence that gathers within. There is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home. But in their disdain for pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols, they are children of the same foul spirit, and it is our continuing duty to confront them. And we have seen growing evidence.
All right, so and that's what he has to say too, which is it's the same speech. It's the same part of this. I didn't realize that they crossed over that far, but it's disgusting. It really is disgusting. What I want to know who was in the planning stages of this, by the way. Who looked up and said, "You know who would be a great person to speak at this event? George W. Bush, who took this horrifying tragedy," by the way. Why did my video just end? Huh. I guess the live just ended. Let's figure out why. Hold on, we're going to do some on-air production here, because I have no idea why we just got kicked off of Instagram. But we did. Alright, we're back to Instagram. I just looked up and the card on the bottom came up and said, live video ended. Okay, why? Because we got to figure this shit out. Anyway, looking back at this, who thought that, hey, you know who we should have speak here? Let's go have W speak at this. That'll be a great idea. That's not going to be divisive. That's not going to be problematic at all. That's not going to be anything else at all. Let's just go have W speak. Right? Right? Let's go look at this. Is a great idea. No, W has no room to talk about this, but once again, as long as he can come out and say, "Oh, hey, the people who follow that evil orange man over there, they're the real domestic extremists. They're the real terrorists out there. Hey, don't pay attention to me and everything that I did for this holiday here. This holiday that us authoritarians love, that us big government and globalist types love. Don't pay attention to my role in this. Just look at the evil orange man over there." I don't say this normally about people in government because I am an advocate of the non-aggression principle whenever possible. Whenever possible, do not aggress on others. But the Bushes are a special case. And everything that they've done to the world, to history, to our country, and everything else they've done. The Bush family should be brought together and forcefully sterilized at this point. Not partially sterilized, not asked if they want to. No, they should be forcefully sterilized and never allowed to pass their evil on to another generation. Now, unfortunately, I think the Bush twins have, at least one of them has had kids at this point, so unfortunately, that generation is going to continue on, but those kids should fucking be sterilized too. That whole family should just be forcefully sterilized, never allowed in the government again. I would take Ken Paxton as Texas AG over George P. Bush. And Ken Paxton is a fucking moron. but his last name isn't Bush. He may be dumb, he may be an asshole, but he is not pure embodied evil, like anybody coming from that family. Jeb, please clap. As he comes off and he does that dumb fuck routine just like his brother did, to come out and say, oh, well, I'll be the president then, and I promise I won't do anything evil. Please clap. Just get these fucking people out of politics, out of our lives, out of everywhere here. All right, let's read from Yahoo News. This comes to Yahoo via the Associated Press. Bush warns of domestic extremism, appeals to Nation I Know, in which he turns around and tries to turn the nation that he knows against the nation that he doesn't like. Let's see, this is from Zeke Miller. Warning that the nation was falling into division and extremism, former President W. appealed Saturday for a return to the spirit of cooperation that emerged almost instantaneously after the 9/11 attacks 20 years ago. Delivering the keynote address at the National Memorial to the victims of Flight 93, who forced down their airplane hijacked by al-Qaeda terrorists before it could be used as a weapon against the nation's capital, Bush warned of violence that gathers within. There is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home, he said. But in their disdain for pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols. Oh my God, they came into the Temple of Democracy. They flew Confederate flags inside the Capitol. Oh, fuck off. They are children of the same foul spirit and our continuing duty to confront them. Bush's warning came barely 8 months after the violent selfie fest at the U.S. Capitol by supporters of then-President Trump attempting to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Yes, with no weapons. With no weapons, no ability to do anything, and a few people who were able to pick up a fucking flagpole. They were going to overturn the U.S. government. Fuck off, AP. It marks some of Bush's sharpest criticism of the attack and appeared to be an implicit criticism of Trump's brand of politics. Well, of course he is, because Trump went in, ran as a Republican, and didn't fucking warmonger. Well, we're Republicans. We're supposed to be the party of war. Fuck all the way off with that shit. He admitted he has no easy solutions. He has no solutions. Instead, he channeled the heroism of the Flight 93 victims and determined spirit of a wounded nation to emerge from the tragedy stronger. On America's Day of Trial and Grief, I saw millions of people instinctively grab for a neighbor's hand and rally to the cause of one another, Bush said. That is the America I know. He added that in the aftermath of the attacks, Islamophobia, nativism, or selfishness could have risen to the fore. It did, thanks to your globalist fucking white supremacist agenda, you fucking cocksucker. But the country rejected them and said, that is the nation I know. This is not mere nostalgia. Where were you that you believe the country rejected them, by the way? Other than in your stupid fucking White House bunker for the next 7 years. This is not mere nostalgia. This is the truest version of ourselves, Bush said. It is what we have been and what we can be again. Bush's appeal for unity drew plaudits from President Joe Biden, who visited Shanksville not long after Bush spoke, having watched his speech aboard Air Force One on the flight from 9/11 commemoration events in New York. I think that... hey, what was that guy's name? I think I remember that guy. I think that President Bush made a really good speech today, Biden said. Genuinely. Biden, too, has prioritized national unity by telling Americans to turn against each other if they were at the Capitol Selfie Fest, telling reporters on Saturday, that's the thing that we're going to affect our well-being more than anything else. These fucking warmongers, these fucking disgusting pieces of fucking garbage. We want national unity, and we'll give you national unity by turning you against all the people that were at the Selfie Fest. They're all uniquely evil, and we need to turn against them, and we need to fight the war against evil MAGA. And we need to do this here. And I got 80 million votes. I'm the most popular president in history. It's disgusting, it really is, and we're going to go talk about more of it. From Newsweek. W delights Democrats, infuriates MAGA world with veiled January 6, 9/11 comparison. It wasn't veiled. He said it outright, from Christine Zhao. That was not a veiled comparison. On the 20th anniversary of the deadliest terror attack in U.S., former President W warned of danger from domestic terrorists, delighting Democrats and infuriating supporters of former President Trump. Yeah, no, Democrats like Bush now. They like him now. Because he's not evil and orange and evil. We've seen grow. We've heard the speech again. I'm not going to fucking read it for the fourth fucking time. Yeah, it's the same thing. There's a little cultural overlap. Their disdain for pluralism, disregard for human life. Yeah, go after the evil MAGA people. Bush's veiled remarks came 8 months after mostly peaceful rioters who wanted to go in and take a selfie stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th in an effort to disrupt Congress, certifying President Biden's election win. And just days after AG Merrick Garland warned that the threat from homegrown violent extremism group, particularly white supremacists, has grown to a level higher than it ever was. Yeah, this sounds like very, very unifying language. Establishment fucking globalists. Democrats and other critics of Trump quickly praised the former Republican president's apparent linkage of January 6th to September 11th. W is right. We must remain vigilant against terrorist extremist groups, both home and abroad, and we cannot rest until all of Trump's traitorous insurrectionist foot soldiers face justice, tweeted the Democratic coalition. Keith Olbermann, a former MSDNC anchor who was suspended from the network in 2010 for making political contributions, tweeted, "Even George W. Bush now recognizes Trump and his supporters and those who directly participated in the 1-6." I can't say that word either because they were unarmed. The C word cannot be said about this. In the 1-6 Selfie Fest are terrorists. Surely as the 9/11 ones were. I'll say it again. Trump damaged America in a way that Bin Laden only dreamed of. Ugh! Meanwhile, Trump supporters and far-right figures vehemently condemned Bush's remarks online. Former Senate candidate and longtime Republican Rob Maness tweeted, "I have personally overlooked many things from former President W, but his comparison between Trump voters and the jihadists from 9/11 is an absolute disgrace. George Bush has been a skid mark on this nation for some time and remains so," tweeted conservative commentator Jesse Kelly, who ran for the House in 2012 to represent Arizona. Orchestrated by Al-Qaeda founder Osama bin Laden, the September 11th attack killed nearly 3,000 people after 2 hijacked planes crashed into the WTC in NYC, 1 into the Pentagon in Arlington, and a 4th into a field in rural Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 1 person died in the Selfie Fest, 3 of natural causes, and 1 shot dead by police. Among the officers who responded to the riot, 1 Capitol Police officer died the following day after he was attacked by rioters, and 4 others who defended the building later took their own lives. Honk honk. By 2 gunshots to the back of the fucking head. So that's our W stuff. Do we have more W? This is an op-ed, but really, I don't care. We're gonna ditch the op-ed. Fuck that. We heard enough op-ed out of the Newsweek article. We'll ditch that one. All right, let's talk about Biden. And when we do Biden here, we're going to be talking from one of everybody's favorite news outlets here, NPR. Biden calls for unity in his address commemorating the September 11th attacks anniversary. This is from Alana Wise, and remember, NPR needs your donations, so donate all of your hard-earned money. Make yourself broke to support NPR because they will support the communist ideals that will lift you back into prosperity. NPR, National Progressive Radio, they need your money, comrade. I mean our money. Let's see what it is that they have to say here. President Biden struck a personal note in a recorded address because, of course, he can't go out and give it live because he might go out and say stupid shit to commemorate the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, beckoning Americans to embrace unity as they reflect on the day that 2 decades ago permanently reshaped the nation. Let's have a listen. Usually I have to go to the Daily Wire to find this kind of video, but hey, we got it here.
On this 9/11, like every 9/11, I'm thinking about my friend Davis, who I grew up with in Delaware. On this day,
He's 7 seconds into the speech and he's already made it about himself. He is 7 seconds in and he's already made it about himself.
20 years ago, he and his family had just passed the first year without their youngest of 3 sons, Teddy, who died in a boating accident at age 15. And his eldest son, Davis Jr., was just 6 days into the new job on the 104th floor of the South Tower, the World Trade Center. Davis went straight to ground zero to search for his son. He searched deep into the last inning of hope, as he put it. A few days later, I spoke with Davis and talked to his fathers who know. I was on my way to speak to the students at the University of Delaware about what to make of the new world we were in. He told me to tell people, quote, "Don't be afraid." He said, "Tell them, don't be afraid." The absolute courage it took after 2 unimaginable losses is extraordinary. Yet the most ordinary of American things, to know life can be unfair and uncertain, a cruel twist of accident or deliberate act of evil. But even in darkness, to still be the light. To the families of the 2,977 people from more than 90 nations killed on September 11th, 2001 in New York City.
Can you guys hear the rain? Because it started raining pretty hard. It probably won't last long because, once it rains that hard it is, but I can go close the window if you guys would prefer.
Arlington, Virginia, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the 1,000 more who were injured. America and the world commemorate you and your loved ones, the pieces of your soul. We honor all those who risked and gave their lives in the minutes, hours, months, and years afterwards. The firefighters, police officers, EMTs and construction workers, and doctors and nurses, faith leaders, service members, veterans, and all of the everyday people who gave their all to rescue, recover, and rebuild. But it's so hard, whether it's the first year or the 20th. Children have grown up without parents.
Yeah, no, they've had parents. I can't listen to this fucking thing anymore, but, it's interesting because W got to go, and I'm going to make my speech, and I'm going to make the speech out there, and I'm going to be right out live in front of everybody else, and God and everybody, I'm going to tell everybody what I think of them. And this guy's got to do a pre-recorded address, which is probably highly edited, because they had to go in and say, take out the, I remember this side over here, there used to be buildings here, and shit like that off of this. I find it funny. And of course, as I mentioned, 7 seconds in, and he's already made it about himself. I had a friend, Davis, and his son, Davis Jr., went to work that day, and he was on the 104th floor. Let's see. So, and then of course now we go off and have the review of what happened on 9/11. And just in case you didn't know, nearly 3,000 people died in the coordinated Al-Qaeda attacks, and thousands more have died from illnesses attributed to toxic exposure from that day. The terror plot was the impetus behind America's invasion of Afghanistan. It was also the false premise behind America's invasion of Afghanistan, by the way, in which thousands of U.S. service members and contractors have been killed, as well as tens of thousands of Afghan citizens. Blah, 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 blah. Fuck off. Fuck you, Biden. You don't know anything about unity either. Let's keep going. From NBC, Biden marks 9/11 with visits to all 3 attack sites. From Shannon Pettypiece. President Biden visited all 3 sites of the September 11th attacks on Saturday. As the nation marked the 20th anniversary of that day, the president began the day in New York, attending a memorial event at Ground Zero Saturday morning, along with Dr. Jill Biden. Sorry, can't be sexist. And former Presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Hussein O., former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and former First Lady Michelle Obama. He traveled next to Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where former President W. and Vice President Kamala Harris both delivered remarks, participating in a wreath-laying ceremony there before visiting the local fire department. He participated in a wreath-laying ceremony at the Pentagon. He did not deliver official remarks at any of the events, because of course he didn't. Because he's a figurehead. He's a steward. He's a Hong Kong president, in name only. These memorials are really important, Biden said at a stop at the local fire department in Shanksville. But they're also incredibly difficult for people affected by them. I know. I was personally affected by this. Pay attention to me. God damn it. Because it brings back the moment they got the phone call. And like the moment I got the phone call where my son, Bo, is it Bo? Alright, it's not Hunter, right? Is Hunter still alive? I sure miss Hunter. Sir, Hunter's right behind you. Hunter! I've missed you. And it brings back the instant they got the news, no matter how years go by. Biden, who praised Bush's remarks about the nation's response to 9/11 as a genuinely good speech about who we are, was marking the milestone anniversary, his first as president, weeks after the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan, nearly 2 decades after the U.S. first knocked them for power in the wake of the September 11th attack. In April, Biden had set the deadline, that date this year, as the deadline for the full U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, recently acknowledging he did not foresee a rapid Taliban takeover that would return them to rule by then. So, yeah, that's what Biden did. There's just no words. And we're going to talk about the Trump visit too for just a little bit off of this, but really honestly that seemed to be what the entire day was. It was about politics. It was about, let's support this person, let's support that person, let's turn our people against their fellow countrymen, the other American people. And it's disgusting. It really is. Alright, from The Blaze. Scroll back up to the top here, because I was looking to see if there's video. Biden mocks resurgence of Al-Qaeda on 9/11 anniversary. Gets booed at memorial. Terrible. Hey, this is something that the mainstream media won't tell us about. From Chris Enlow. President Biden mocked the resurgence of Al-Qaeda on the 20th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attack on Saturday, after earlier in the day being booed while visiting the 9/11 memorial at the World Trade Center. Oh, that's funny. CNN didn't tell us about the fact that he got booed. Holy shit, it's dark out there. Just in case the storms roll through, if I get knocked off, I will do everything I can to go and reconnect. Because that's pretty dark out there, especially given the fact that that window faces east, where the sun is rising currently. The cooldown feels really good though. While speaking with the reporters at the Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the location where 40 people lost their lives after thwarting hijackers' plans to fly United 93 into the White House or U.S. Capitol building, Biden admitted that Al-Qaeda could come back. If you would have told anybody that we were going to spend $300 million a day for 20 years to try and unite the country after we got Osama bin Laden, after Al-Qaeda was wiped out of there, can Al-Qaeda come back? Yeah, Biden said. Let's listen, because there's video. No, I don't want that video. I want this one.
If you had told anybody that we were going to spend $300 million a day for 20 years to try to unite the country after we got bin Laden, after Al-Qaeda was wiped out there, can Al-Qaeda come back? Yeah, but guess what? It's already back other places. What's the strategy? Every place where Al-Qaeda is, we're going to invade and have troops stay there? Come on. Anyway, so I just think that, and again, what people are, as I read it, I'm told, 70% of American people think it was time to get out of Afghanistan, spending all that money. But the flip of it is, they didn't like the way we got out. But it's hard to explain to anybody, how else could you get out? For example, if we were in Tajikistan, we pulled up a C-130 and said, we're going to let, anybody who was involved with being sympathetic to us to get in the plane. You'd have people hanging the wheel well. Come on.
Come on, man. What's the every place that Al-Qaeda's going, we're going to invade and have troops stay there. Come on. Biden's admission contradicted what he said just weeks ago. In defending the botched Afghanistan withdrawal, Biden described the mission there as a success. So, yeah, he thinks that's a success. The mask, by the way, caught another thing in my memory that I forgot to bring up onto the show notes here. But I grabbed this video here. I put it up on Discord because breaking news, AOC, Speaker Pelosi, Jerry Nadler, Kathleen Hochul, and dozens of other Democrats seen in New York City around hundreds without masks on before the news media and cameras showed up. Their hypocrisy is disgusting and must be exposed. Rules for thee, but not for me. So let's watch the video of all these Democrats who will be masked later on in this because they've got a virtue signal. All of them, by the way, are also fully vaccinated. Oh, ear aids. Holy shit. Let's draw that back. It does appear that the houseplant-in-chief is wearing his mask. I don't know if I can zoom this in at all, but as best we can see, yeah, there's the mask. You can see the ear hooks off of there. And I think that's Biden. I think. Looks like him from the back. Maybe it's not, but somebody is. But for the most part, yeah. We see everybody else out here. No mask, no nothing. All right. Let's talk about the Orange Man. Trump visits NYC but opts out of official ceremony on 20th anniversary of 9/11. That's probably good, actually. That's probably good that he opted out of the official ceremony, and I'll tell you about why in just a second. But first we're going to read from Axios because, well, apparently I hate myself. From Tuan Dam. Former President Trump struck a divisive tone as he visited New York City on Saturday, opting not to participate in the official ceremony at Ground Zero, honoring the victims of the terrorist attack. The 45th president's remarks were in sharp contrast to the calls for unity from President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and former President George W. Bush, who alluded to the Capitol insurrection and the dangers of homegrown extremists in his own remarks in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I didn't listen. Well, we listened to what Biden had to say, and he had nothing to say about any of that, but we listened to what W had to say. What part of that was unity? Exactly. Please tell me. What part of that was unifying? Your fellow Americans, the people of your own country, the 77 million people that voted for Donald Trump, they want to take over the government in a coup, and we should shun them. We should bring them to justice. What part of that is unity? Exactly what part of that is unity? You fucking warmonger. Standing in front of first responders at the 17th Precinct Station House in East Midtown, Trump said, "I'll say it loud. You know, you're not supposed to say that. We love the blue." I don't particularly love the blue, but they're not the worst person in the world. Or the worst people in the world. They're probably about, if zeros are the worst people in the world and tens are the best people in the world, they're probably about a 4 or a 5. They're not the worst people in the world. I would much rather go after the politicians who make the laws that they have to enforce. But we've had that conversation numerous times. Biden, along with Harris and former Presidents Bush and Obama, also honored first responders in their respective remarks on the anniversary. Trump had told Fox News on Friday he planned to visit Ground Zero on Saturday, but no official plans were announced on Saturday evening. Trump will virtually address Let Us Worship, an evangelical event in Washington, D.C. Trump's spokeswoman Liz Harrington told the New York Times, a former newspaper. He will also be providing commentary for a pay-per-view boxing match. So, and this is after the fact. This was updated on September 11th, which I'm sure the original Axios article was just saying, "Oh, well, Donald Trump is skipping out of New York entirely so that he can go back." I would actually I should go back at some point, look through the archives of this to see if anybody archived the original. Because I'm curious to see if this was, first off, oh, Trump, he wasn't planning on going to New York. He was just going to go announce for a boxing match. So, here's what I think happened. And I might be wrong. First and foremost, even before he made the visit, the surprise visit down to the New York precinct, to the 17th precinct, I made a tweet earlier on that day and I said, you know, if Trump went down to Ground Zero and made remarks alongside W and Kamala and all these other people, the leftoids on Twitter would be screeching, seething, and raging and saying, well, he's making it all about him. He's turning the memorial into a campaign event and he's just sucking all the air out of the room. That bastard. They didn't want a solution for that. They didn't want him to do anything. They just wanted to hate. That's all they wanted. And then, surprise, surprise, there he is, suddenly in the 17th precinct. Which I think was good. But there again, you know, if he goes out and he makes a scheduled, planned event to go to New York, to Deep Blue New York on top of this, if he goes out, puts it on the schedule, puts it on the calendar that he's going to be there at this time, the plane is going to land at JFK at that time, and he's going to be arriving at Ground Zero at this time, excuse me, protesters, Antifa, people who want to do harm to the former president because they think that he's the uniquest evil in the world, just like they used to think about W, which I still think about W. But protesters line up, they come out, they chant, they hold their signs. If everybody knows where he's going to be, they show up and they protest. We saw a lot of this with some of the rallies that we saw during his presidency. No matter where he goes, the protests go out and follow, and they protest, and they make noise. And whereas if he can just do a surprise drop-in visit, some of his fans show up. He gets like 1,000 people come in and show up to shake his hand, take selfies with him. But the protesters largely avoid the thing. So I think that was the strategy, and that's why he went out and said that he was only going to be announcing the boxing match on that day. I think that was the reason for that. And I think it was a good idea. I think it was maybe a little bit crass to come out and say that he was doing something else on that day, rather than just sitting at Mar-a-Lago. I would have just said I'm sitting at Mar-a-Lago, and that's the end of it, but I think that is just a little bit crass that he did it that way, but regardless, he kept the protesters away from the event that he went to when he went back and congratulated the firefighters. So I think the Midtown Precinct, too, was one of them that was there, wasn't it? 17th? So I can understand the strategy that went along with this. All right, from the New York Post, Trump makes surprise visit to New York police and firefighters on 9/11. From John Levine, Joe Marino, Larry Silona, and Tina Moore. Former President Trump made a surprise visit with New York City police and firefighters Saturday to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. In remarks to assembled guests, the former president sharply rebuked President Biden and the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan. "It was gross incompetence, and I hate to talk about it on this day," Trump said. Well, good. Be classy. Trump praised New York's finest, telling the crowd, "If they let you do your job, you wouldn't have crime in New York." No, don't make it about that. Seriously, dude, don't make it about that. As some in the crowd nodded their heads, the Donald jokingly warned them to just stand and just be perfect. Be great, be perfect. And there are some of the things he's, in the precinct speaking at the podium. Signing something, guest book? I don't know. Station House logbook, that's what he's signing. "I love you, and his signature that I actually can't read. I don't know how you get Donald John Trump out of that. "Don't nod, because if you nod, you'll get in trouble, okay?" Then someone asked if Trump would consider running for mayor of New York City. "Okay, I would love that. Fellas, good luck, go to town," before apparently referencing an uptick in violence in the 5 boroughs. It's hurting our city very, very badly, okay? It's the worst. It is the worst thing ever." He squeezed in for a photo with the crowd, earning another round of laughs when he quipped, apparently a reference to COVID-19, I'm not catching anything from you. If I do, I'll come back and blame you." So there are the pictures of this. He left the precinct at just after 1:40. He exited to cheers and applause with one well-wisher screaming, "Thanks for keeping us safe. I've been given so much support by the people who do what you do," Trump told the friendly audience. "We love the blue. I'll say it aloud. You're not supposed to say that, but we love the blue." So, that's what we see going off of that. All right, I think this is... No, we got a couple more 9/11 ones, then we got to go to other Afghanistan news. Jesus Christ, we've already been at this for an hour, and we're still just scratching the 9/11 surface. Another Daily Wire one here. Failed Democratic candidate claims January 6th worse than 9/11. It's not even close. From Chrissy Clark. A failed Democratic candidate in Florida tweeted that she believes the Capitol riot, Selfie Fest, on January 6, 2021 was a more pressing day in American history than the terrorist attack that took place on September 11, 2001 and killed 3,000 people. "Okay, Papi, they flew the Confederate flag in the Capitol, okay? Okay, girlfriend, we can't stand for that anymore." I do that finger snap thing entirely too well, and it makes me worried about myself. You realize that? I know I'm doing an impression of somebody else, but I still do that way too well. Next thing you know, I'll stand up and cock my hip and go, "Mm-hmm." How I'm still on YouTube, I have no idea. But the channel is small enough that I'm still flying under the radar, apparently. Pam Keith unsuccessfully ran for Florida's 18th district in the 2018 midterms and was an unsuccessful Democratic candidate in the Florida Senate race of 2016. She also served in the Navy from 95 to 99. Keith tweeted on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks that she believes the January 6 selfie festers were worse than 9/11. Let's read the tweet. On 1/6/2021, 9/11/2001 ceased being the worst thing that happened to America in my lifetime. It's really weird and painful to process and say that, but it's the truth. And quite frankly, it's not even close. Well, you're right about one thing. It's not even close. One person died as a result of a police officer shooting her in the fucking head while she was unarmed and stuck. And 3,000 people died, including people jumping out of a building to avoid being burned to death in the World Trade Center. And the other subsequent attacks. Keith is being shellacked on social media for her take. Political pundits Chris and Dana Lash called out Keith for allegedly making the 9/11 memorial about herself. Because today's all about you, Dana Lash tweeted. Chris Lash says your idiotic attempt at a comparison and equivocation is shameful. Crawl back into your hole and delete your account. Jennifer Greenberg, tell that to the families of the 2,996 people who died on 9/11. Actually, scratch that. They deserve peace and comfort today. Leave them alone. Ooh, burn. Ghost Hunter Lizzie. You should say this to the face of all the families of the victims of the Pentagon and the Twin Towers, on the airplanes and the first responders and heroes who died on 9/11. Keith is not alone in her comparison. Andrea Mitchell said the same thing. Former President Bush in Shanksville compares January 6 insurrectionists to hijackers in determination to defile our nation's symbols. They are children of the same foul spirit, and it's our duty to confront them. Wow. Yes, because W got in on it too. Now, it is interesting to note that the comments are turned off, except for the people that Pam Keith follows, in this particular one. But, I mean, she didn't do that right away because she was expecting to get heaped praise on. Did I do that grammatically correct? Let's rephrase that. She was expecting to get heaped with praise over this, and she wound up getting massively fucking ratioed, deservedly. At which point she went back and turned the comments off. That was a disgusting tweet. But there again, ask for unity, and then tell Americans to turn on half their countrymen. Huh. Wow, now I'm sad. Now I'm depressed. Somebody tell a titty joke in the chat. All right, here's one from New York Post. This is an opinion piece. This is an op-ed. But I wanted to touch on this just briefly. This is an old op-ed too, by the way. This is from 2019. You know what? This is from 2019. We're not going to do this one. I didn't check the date on this. I found it on my phone. I thought that was new news and not an op-ed. All right, skipping it. Let's go talk Afghanistan. Afghanistan proper at this point. I guess we're getting some answers as to why the State Department, honk honk, believes that they want to down the flights and keep them in Afghanistan forever. Afghanistan flights into U.S. suspended because of measles cases, according to the White House. You know that thing that they keep citing when they say, why won't you get the vaccine? Don't you know we eliminated measles in this country because everyone's vaccinated? There's no measles here because nobody can get it because everyone's vaccinated. Well, apparently that's not the case. Okay, this is a short one too. This is just a stub article. From Reuters, flights of Afghanistan refugees into the U.S. have been temporarily paused because of 4 cases of measles, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on Friday. Bitch, you could have tweeted that out. That could have been a tweet. I bet you that's less than 280 characters. All right, from the Blaze. Because nobody else would cover this one. Former CIA director warns botched Afghanistan withdrawal could have paved the way for Al-Qaeda attacks on U.S. soil. From Chris Enlow. Leon Panetta, who served as CIA director and defense secretary in the Obama admin, warned Sunday that Al-Qaeda could launch future attacks on American soil because the Taliban again control Afghanistan. Speaking with Greta Van Susteren, Panetta said the Taliban that retook control of Afghanistan is pretty much the same Taliban that controlled Afghanistan on 9/11, which means Al-Qaeda will likely reorganize under the protection of the Taliban. We're going back there, aren't we? We're going back there, aren't we? I just see terrorism becoming a renewed threat to the U.S. I'm not sure you can get a lot done when you're dealing essentially with an adversary whose primary interest, the primary interest of terrorists, is to attack Americans and kill Americans, Panetta said. Video? Long video. Maybe? Oh, 33 seconds of video. Let's listen.
I think the Taliban took us for a ride. It's clear to me that they're going to continue to support Al-Qaeda and allow Al-Qaeda to basically continue to develop and expand. And I think they will plan additional attacks on our country as well as elsewhere. We've got a lot of different ways to gather intelligence, but we're going to need strong intelligence on the ground to keep track of these terrorists.
And they muted him right at the end. Edited in post, I'm sure. Yeah, we're going back, aren't we? We're going back, aren't we? They're going to find any reason that they can to go and bring us back. And put us back into Afghanistan again, because the globalists, who are, by the way, also putting chemicals in the water and turning the frickin' frogs gay, the globalists want nothing more than to have us back in control of those poppy fields. Cheap fentanyl, the prison pipeline opens back up. This one, from the New York Times, a former newspaper, archived, of course. Times investigation in U.S. drone strike. Evidence suggests no ISIS bomb. But wait, it gets worse. Do I have reported by Matthew Akins, Christoph Kodal, Evan Hill, Eric Schmidt, written by Matthew Akins. It was the last known missile fired by the U.S. in its 20-year war in Afghanistan, and the military called it a righteous strike. A drone attack after hours of surveillance on August 29th against a vehicle that American officials thought contained an ISIS bomb and posed an imminent threat to troops at Kabul's airport. But a New York Times, a former newspaper's, investigation of video evidence, along with interviews with more than a dozen drivers' co-workers, and family members in Kabul, raises doubts about the U.S. version of events, including whether explosives were present in the vehicle, whether the driver had connection to ISIS, and whether there was a second explosion after the missile struck the car. Military officials said they did not know the identity of the car's driver when the drone fired, but deemed him suspicious because of how they interpreted his activities that day, saying that he possibly visited an ISIS safe house and at one point loaded what they thought could be explosives into the car. Times reporting has identified the driver as Zamari Ahmadi, a longtime worker for U.S. Aid Group. The evidence, including extensive interviews with family members, co-workers, and witnesses, suggests his travels that day actually involved transporting colleagues to and from work. And an analysis of video feeds shows that what the military may have seen was Mr. Ahmadi and a colleague loading canisters of water into his trunk to bring home to his family. While the U.S. military said the drone strike might have killed 3 civilians, Times reporting shows that it killed 10, including 7 children in a dense residential block. Not only, because I theorized that they just threw a drone strike on an empty car, because then they could come on and say, hey, we got an ISIS target, look at that, and somebody's insurance company had to go pay for a car. Not only did they not get an ISIS target, but they killed one of ours in a drone strike. Not only that, on top of all that, 7 kids and 3 adults on top of the U.S. contractor that was helping people get back and forth to work. And loading canisters of water into the trunk of his car to bring home to his family. Slow clap, people. Slow clap. Good job, Biden. Oh, this is what incompetence looks like. And that, I mean, this isn't coming from the Blaze or the Daily Wire or the Washington Examiner or anything else like that. This is coming from the New York Times, a former newspaper, who will kneel down and suck the dick of the current president just to make sure that they come out and say, okay, please be favorable to us when you crack down on the freedom of the press. This is not from a right-leaning website. This is from one of the leftiest of the lefts. And still they released this. All right, from Reuters. UN warns Afghanistan needs money to prevent total breakdown. From Michelle Nichols. No shit, Sherlock. The UN warned on Thursday that the freezing of billions of dollars in Afghan assets to keep them out of Taliban hands would inevitably spark a severe economic downturn and could push millions more Afghans into poverty and hunger. UN Special Envoy on Afghanistan, Deb Lyons, said the way needed to be founded to get money quickly flowing to the country to prevent total breakdown of the economy and social order, and with safeguards to ensure it is not misused by the Taliban. Well, they make GoFundMe every day. Go start a GoFundMe. Because private charity does better than what the government ever could. Lyons told the UN Security Council that Afghanistan could be set back for generations. Yeah, well, we knew that when we went in there for the first time, 20 fucking years ago. The economy must be allowed to breathe for a few more months, giving the Taliban a chance to demonstrate flexibility and a genuine will to do things differently this time, notably from a human rights, gender perspective, and counterterrorism perspective, Lyons told the 15-member council. Much of the Afghan central bank's $10 billion in assets are parked overseas, where they're considered a key instrument for the West to pressure the Taliban. The U.S. Treasury Department said it's not easing Taliban sanctions or loosening curbs on the Islamist group's access to the global financial system. The International Monetary Fund has also blocked the Taliban from accessing $440 million in new emergency reserves. The Taliban seeks international legitimacy and support. Our message is simple. Any legitimacy and support will have to be earned. Senior U.S. diplomat Jeffrey de Laurentiis told the Security Council. Russia and China both argued for the release of Afghanistan's frozen assets. Well, you guys have private charity too. You're a lot closer to them than we are. See if you can raise a couple grand. Give it over to the Taliban if you're so excited about it. So, yeah, and really honestly, yes, of course they need cash. They're rebuilding from 20 years of our military occupation. Of course they need resources. Why wouldn't they? All right. Let's talk about Texas abortion, starting with CNN. Stephen Breyer calls Supreme Court decision on Texas abortion law very, very wrong. From Paul LeBlanc. The U.S. Supreme Court, Justice Stephen Breyer, called the High Court's recent refusal to block a controversial Texas law that bars abortions at 6 weeks very, very, very wrong. I'll add one more very, the liberal justice told NPR in an interview published on Thursday, and I wrote a dissent. That's the way it works. Breyer's comments build on his pointed dissent in the Supreme Court's 5-4 ruling that allowed the Texas law, which is one of the strictest in the nation and bans abortion before many people know they're pregnant, to remain on the books. If you don't know that you stuck that there, unprotected, and there wasn't a chance you were going to get pregnant, you shouldn't be fucking in the first place. In an unsigned opinion, the majority wrote that while the abortion providers raised serious questions regarding the constitutionality of the Texas law, they had not met a burden that would allow the court to block it at this time due to complex and novel procedural questions. All three of former President Trump's appointees, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, voted with the majority to let the Texas law remain in effect. Under the law, abortion is prohibited when a fetal heartbeat is detected, and there's no exception for rape or incest, although there is an exemption for medical emergencies. Texas law delegates to private individuals the power to prevent a woman from obtaining an abortion during the first stage of pregnancy, Breyer wrote, but a woman has a federal constitutional right to obtain an abortion during that first stage. Okay. You point to me in the Constitution where the word abortion is, and we'll go from there. But that's the perennial argument. We can sit back and have that argument forever. And it's never going to go anywhere. It's just going to be the next thing that they do when it comes time to come up for election day. And yes, mark my words, Democrats are going to be screeching about this during the midterms and during 2024. But it's interesting that Stephen Breyer, because, well, he's the one that the leftoids hate right now more than any of the Trump appointees. And Michael Stern sums it up best on this when he says, I don't want to hear a peep out of Justice Breyer except for his retirement announcement so Biden can appoint a liberal justice before Breyer dies while we have the Senate votes to confirm. They are terrified of the midterms. They are terrified of it, and why wouldn't they be? Because if they lose the Senate, or even one seat, or if they finally piss off Manchin enough that he flips, if they finally go after him enough where he switches party affiliation, guess who doesn't get confirmed? Guess who is a complete lame duck by that point for the rest of his term, or the rest of his life, whichever comes first. I have more CNN stuff. This one comes from our friend Merrick Garland. Justice Department sues Texas over a 6-week abortion ban. From Tierney Sneed and Evan Perez. This is from Thursday, by the way. We're catching up on some of the stuff that we haven't been able to get to because the shows have run so long. From CNN, the Biden Justice Department sued the state of Texas on Thursday over its new 6-week abortion ban, saying the state law is unconstitutional. Announcing the lawsuit at a news conference in Washington, AG Merrick Garland said the Texas law's unprecedented design seeks to prevent women from exercising their constitutional rights by thwarting judicial review as long as possible. The act is clearly unconstitutional under long-standing Supreme Court precedent, Garland said. The Texas law was designed specifically with the goal of making it more difficult for clinics to obtain federal court orders, blocking enforcement of the law instead of creating criminal penalties for abortions conducted after a fetal heartbeat is detected. The Texas legislature has tasked private citizens with enforcing the law by bringing private litigation against clinics and anyone else who assists a woman in obtaining an abortion after 6 weeks. So, I've had some thoughts about this. I've had some thoughts for a while about this. Now, there is no constitutional right to have an abortion. Plain and simple. It's not there. I read the Constitution front to back. It is not there. I don't particularly care for the structure of this law because it does take out the right to privacy that these women should be exercising. That was the decision of Roe versus Wade, by the way. It was not the decision of, you have a right to an abortion because it's right there in the Constitution in invisible ink. It's not there. But you had a right to privacy between you and your doctor. If you want to go and commit this heinous act, it's between you and your doctor. You shouldn't be shouting your abortion. It shouldn't be any of the government's fault. It shouldn't be any of your community's business unless you want it to be, unless you want to tell them. You have the right to privacy. But they're going to come out here, they're going to try and make this about, controlling the women and Handmaid's Tale and chained to the stove and all this other stupid shit. And it's none of that. And lastly, if you don't want to have children, cover your boner. Plain and simple. Alright, let's see. What else do we have here? Some budgetary news. Manchin, Schumer will not have my vote on $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. From Jessica Chasmer. Wow, we're going to get through, I think, all this today at a decent hour, and I'll get to go over and see the Daily Ignoramus. Senator Joe Manchin said Sunday he will not vote in favor of his party's $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation package, which is the central part of President Biden's Build Back Better agenda and needs the support of all 50 Democratic senators to pass. Appearing on CNN's State of the Union, Manchin was asked by another anchor, Dana Bash, to respond to Senate Majority Leader Charles U. Schumer, who said Democrats were moving full speed ahead on the package for which Manchin previously called for a pause. Manchin, who sits on the Appropriations Committee, said his main issue with the package is the hefty price tag. Yeah, don't be a loner, cover your boner. He will not have my vote on the 3.5, and Chuck knows that, he said, adding that would be more like 1.5 trillion. Which is still motherfucking ridiculous, by the way. It's not going to be 3.5, I can assure you. Manchin said the bill that Democrats should be primarily focused on is the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is also motherfucking outrageous. That passed in the Senate is awaiting House action. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said a vote on the bill would be held on September 27th, but progressives have threatened to vote against it if the reconciliation bill is held up by the Senate. Manchin said there's no way the reconciliation will pass this month. He said progressives are making a big mistake if they follow through on their threat. They have to do what they have to do, he said, and if they play politics with the needs of America, I can tell you America will recoil. Appearing on ABC's This Week, Manchin criticized Bernie Sanders after the senator declared on Twitter the day before, "No infrastructure bill without the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill." I just respectfully disagree with Bernie, Manchin told ABC's George Stephanopoulos. I've never seen this in legislation. I've never thought the purpose of the progress we make in legislation was basically to hold one hostage over the other. Sanders, who appeared later in the same show, fired back saying, "The real question is whether it is appropriate for one person to destroy 2 pieces of legislation and keep me from getting my voting cup." Sanders said that regardless of party infighting, he expects both bills to eventually pass. Budget reconciliation rules prevent Republicans from filibustering the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, so Democrats only need a simple majority to pass it. With a 50-50 Senate, Democrats need every senator in their party to vote yes, with Vice President Kamala Harris breaking the tie. I'm not going to lie, I would laugh my ass off if all of this got torpedoed, because that would be the bitter end to the Biden agenda and the Biden presidency. That's why I still haven't changed my name, by the way, on Twitter from the Filibustered Agenda. Alright, let's keep going. From Newsweek. Here's an interesting one. Members of Congress and their staff are exempt from Biden's vaccine mandate. From Dara Rowe. President Biden's new vaccine mandate for federal employees doesn't apply to members of Congress or those who work for Congress in the federal court system. Biden issued 2 executive orders on Thursday requiring vaccination against COVID for federal workers and contractors who work for the federal government. He also asked the Department of Labor to issue an emergency order requiring businesses with more than 100 employees to ensure their workers are vaccinated or tested on a weekly basis. However, Biden's order on federal workers applies to employees of the executive branch. The House of Representatives and the Senate belong to a separate legislative branch, and the courts to the judicial branch of the federal government. Biden's COVID action plan, Path Out of the Pandemic, published on the White House's website, makes the effect of the vaccine mandate clear. The plan says, that's probably not Biden's voice. Building on the president's announcement in July to strengthen the safety requirements for unvaccinated federal workers, the president has signed an executive order to take those actions a step further and require all federal executive branch workers to be vaccinated. The president also signed an EO directing that this standard be extended to employees of contractors that do business with the federal government, and the plan goes on. As part of this effort, the DoD, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Indian Health Service, the National Institute of Health, will complete implementation of their previously announced vaccination requirements that cover 2.5 million people. Come on, man! So, the simple answer to this is that he can't mandate this out for Congress, but this doesn't make it more suspicious that Congress, if they're so balls on and eager and have such a hard on to do this, why they're not coming out and doing this themselves. Why Nancy Pelosi and Charles U. Schumer haven't made their own mandate. I mean, they have more than 100 employees. So, by all rights and by all stretches of the imagination, they should be making this mandate, but simple logic dictates that there is a separation of powers and Biden can enforce this against another branch of government. Whether you think there's something more ulterior to this, I don't know, but that's what simple logic dictates anyway. From the Daily Wire, more people who don't need to be vaccinated. Watch, Psaki admits Biden vax mandates doesn't include migrants at border, refuses to answer why. White House Press Secretary, red-haired bobblehead, admitted on Friday that President Biden's vaccine mandate does not include migrants at the U.S. southern border, but she refused to answer why. You know we're going to listen to this one. That's the reason I took this from the Daily Wire, because we had video.
Across the southern border into the country.
Well, look, our objective is to get as many people vaccinated across the country as humanly possible. And so the president's announcement yesterday was an effort to empower businesses, to give businesses the tools to protect their workforces. That's exactly what we did. But certainly we want everybody to get vaccinated, and more people are vaccinated, whether they are migrants or whether they are workers, protects more people in the United States.
But it's a requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people. It is not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct. Go ahead.
I know that with enforcement, employers who refuse to implement the vaccine rules are subject to fines. But what about employees who refuse to comply with the requirements? Will federal contractors or employees be fired? And is that the recommendation for
across the southern border into the country?
So, yeah. Okay, next question. I don't have an answer for this next question. She thought she was so smooth, but didn't quite get there.
Well,
shut up. All right, speaking of more vaccine news, Surgeon General, U.S. to monitor whether vaccine exemptions are being used properly. From Peter Aitken. U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy has advised the Biden admin will monitor to ensure no one abuses COVID-19 vaccine exemptions. President Biden last week announced a mandate that required any company with at least 100 employees to mandate its workforce. The only way to avoid the mandate is to claim an exemption on either religious or medical grounds. Some critics argue that the exemptions allow for simple abuse, but Murthy insists the administration will ensure that does not happen. Unfortunately, as a country, we have experience in dealing with exemptions, but we've got to be vigilant there and make sure that people are using them, in the spirit that they're intended and not abusing them or asking for exemptions when they don't apply. Murthy told CNN State of the Union, "That's an area we continue to monitor in the days and weeks ahead." Biden's vaccine mandate has met immediate opposition from the Republican governors who made it clear they plan to oppose the mandate with legal action if necessary after claiming the mandate was unconstitutional. It is. The American dream has turned into a nightmare under President Biden and the radical Democrats. Republican South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster said on Twitter in response to the mandate, "They have declared the war against capitalism, thumbed their noses at the Constitution, and empowered our enemies abroad." Texas Governor Greg Abbott labeled the mandate as an assault on private business. "I issued an executive order protecting Texans' rights to choose whether they get the vaccine and added it to the special session agenda," Abbott tweeted. "Texas is already working to halt his power grab." Murthy said that he does not respect the people, have a variety of opinions on or he does respect rather, that the people have a variety of opinions on some measures, including the mandate that the government has enacted to try to fight the virus, but he insists that businesses have welcomed those measures. If businesses had welcomed those measures, they would have mandated it by themselves. Side note on this, by the way, because businesses have demanded these measures. So, I rarely listen to terrestrial radio, except for a little bit on weekday mornings when I catch up with some of the local news that we sometimes listen to on this program. I listen to a little bit of terrestrial radio on the way to work, and it's a short drive to work, so it doesn't take long. But I, for the most part, do not do terrestrial radio. However, while I was on Spotify listening to the Donnas on the way to my hiking trip yesterday down at a state park in Illinois, while I was on the way down there, I heard several advertisements saying that BP is demanding methane regulation. Because regulations even the playing field. They don't advantage anybody or anybody else. They just even the playing field for everybody off of this. Yo, when such a big company as BP is demanding the government makes a regulation, that means they've already paid off a senator to make sure that they are exempt from the regulation. My video just ended again. I don't know what the fuck is going on with Instagram, but they keep ending my video. I guess we're going to stop with the Instagram for right now. But yeah, when a major company like BP is saying, we demand that there be a federal regulation on methane, they're not doing that out of their own free will. They know that that will crush several of their competitors, take them out of the market, and they can grow. And that's the same thing with these businesses. The businesses don't have to demand the government make a mandate or put a mandate in place. They can make their own mandate. They are a private company. But see, that levels the playing field. We saw the same thing with the mask mandates in various states, and I saw it especially in Wisconsin. Now, in Wisconsin, when mask mandates went into effect, well, before they went into effect, when masks were first being talked about, before there was any mandate or anything else in there. And I'll use Janesville as the example because it's close and that's where I go shopping. The Festival Foods in Janesville had a mask mandate. The Woodman's did not. The Walmart had a mask mandate. The Target did not. Well, they came out corporate right before the Wisconsin mandate went into effect. But they didn't have one. The meat shop in town didn't have a mandate. But the hardware store did. And people were going specifically to the places that didn't have a mandate. The Festival Foods, the parking lot was empty when the mask mandate went into effect. And everybody was over at Woodman's across the street that didn't have a mandate. It turns out, when your business comes out and says, you must do this, then people don't want to go there. They don't want to deal with the bullshit. Because it's bullshit. And it full out is bullshit. Now, if people want to go in there and wear a mask, then that's on them. And I have never dogged on anybody who's wanted to go out and wear a mask for their own volition, without being forced to do so by an outside business. And I've never really dogged on a business for trying to do what they feel is the best way to keep their customers safe. Even if I think it's a tremendously stupid idea, I've never dogged on a business for doing that. But the American people chose. And the people of Wisconsin chose too. And that's, once again, that was a part of the reason that they came in, because the people were starting to pick the winners and losers based on who mandated and who didn't. And, the people aren't allowed to pick winners and losers. That's the government's job. And it's the same thing with this. Now, companies are making vaccine mandates, and people are leaving these companies in droves. They're saying, I don't want to work for this. This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore. But if there's a statewide or a federal vaccine mandate, then these companies can just go blame it all on the government. See, no, you could still come work for here. It's not me. It's the evil government that's making the mandate. Because without government intervention, the companies that have the vaccine mandates are going to fail because they won't have employees. Because people think that's bullshit. So that's what we see coming out of that. And it's really an interesting way how the government comes out and says that they're the ones who get to pick the winners and losers, and not the American people who are putting their capital into these businesses. All right, let's keep going. From The Blaze. Cheerful ethics professor delivers emotional lesson on vaccine mandates before being placed on leave. From Paul Saka. An ethics professor gave what could be her final lesson at the university she's been employed at for the last 20 years. The lesson was regarding vaccine mandates. The professor's employer has implemented mandatory COVID-19 vaccines, which she believes is unethical. Dr. Julie Ponesse is an ethics professor at Ontario's Huron University, which is affiliated with Western University. Ponesse, who holds a PhD in ethics, delivered an emotional message about vaccine mandates in a video that has since gone viral. How can you have a PhD in ethics? Today I'm going to... we actually might be able to watch this too, this last speech. Because I think that's on here. Five minutes. We can
My
watch part of
name
this
is
video.
Julie Ponesse, and this message is about mandatory vaccinations. I am a professor of ethics at Huron College at the University of Western Ontario. It's one of the largest universities in Canada. Today, I'm going to teach you a short lesson on the universally accepted ethics of coercing people into medical procedures. I'll be the example. My employer has just mandated that I must get a vaccine for COVID-19. If I want to keep working at my job as a professor, I have to take this vaccine. Here's my conundrum. My school employs me to be an authority on the subject of ethics. I hold a PhD in ethics and ancient philosophy. And I'm here to tell you it's ethically wrong to coerce someone to take a vaccine. If it happens to you, you don't have to do it. If you don't want a COVID vaccine, don't take one. End of discussion. It's your own business. But that is not the approach of the University of Western Ontario, which has suddenly required that I be vaccinated immediately or not report for work. So with the school year beginning in a few days, I am facing imminent dismissal after 20 years on the job, because I will not submit to having an experimental vaccine injected into my body. I've had plenty of vaccines in my life, but I've never been forced to take one. It's always. I don't work in a high-risk environment. I'm not a doctor in an emergency room. I'm a teacher. I'm a university professor.
You know, I should probably not take too long on this because YouTube took this video down, and it's on Rumble, but we're doing it on YouTube, so I might actually get a strike on that. But you know what? We have other options as well, so we'll see what happens with that and see if I get the strike. But I mean, I think she's right on that. And if this was a good idea, and what have I said from the beginning? Good ideas don't have to be forced. Good ideas don't have to be mandated. Good ideas are generally picked up and said, hey, this is a good idea. I want this. And once you start talking about mandates, you start thinking about what ulterior motives could be. But we'll see what happens with that. All right, let's grab a few more here from the Daily Wire. Inflation for businesses hits highest rate since 2010. From Ben Ziesloft. Inflation for businesses reached year-over-year rate of 8.3%, the metric's highest level since at least 2010. The Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that the Producer Price Index, which monitors changes in input prices for businesses and other domestic producers, rose by 0.7% in August, slightly beating the 0.6% rate predicted by economists. The Producer Price Index is now showing an 8.3% year-over-year pace, the fastest since November of 2010 rather. Fox Business reports that the rate has now risen for the 5th consecutive month. The Bureau of Labor Statistics explained that a large portion of the inflation for final demand goods was driven by higher meat prices. Interesting. Rising inflation in the U.S., which signals diminishing purchasing power for businesses and consumers alike, is concerning economists and lawmakers. Kevin Brady, the ranking member of the House Ways and Means Committee, is responsible for determining taxes and other fiscal policy measures, told the Daily Wire in August interview that inflation under President Biden is the mirror image of the trends that under President Trump. Wages grew twice as fast as prices, remarked Brady. Every family's purchasing power was growing under Trump. As a matter of fact, in 2019, household income grew more in just a year than in all 8 years of the Obama-Biden admin. In contrast, inflation has been outpacing real wage growth for most of 2021. Brady argued that the Federal Reserve and the White House share responsibility for rising levels of inflation. As both are in denial about the seriousness of the length of rising price levels, both the Fed and the White House have been very slow to recognize their role they're playing in driving these higher prices. If we continue the emergency spending and expanding government checks as the president has proposed, and the fact that the workers are not coming back to the workforce, what you're going to see is the demand inflation that we're seeing today will transform into a cost inflation, a push inflation for the longer term. Indeed, Biden has been consistently brushing off concerns about higher inflation. So, yeah, what you're getting out of the grocery store, what you're getting out of the restaurant, what you're getting out of the gas station, it's all jumping up. It's not just the meat prices either, but they are driving this upwards. Because we have to have so much more regulation into the cost of meat and the pricing of meat and the production of meat. We have to have the USDA go in there and shut down any small competitors that rise up to try to bring down the cost of meat. But it's also fuel prices. Under the Donald, for the vast majority of his 4 years, fuel prices kept continually going down until they got to a point that they couldn't go down any further. And then they started to come up and level off, but now they are doubled what they were at the end of the Trump term. They are double what they were at the end of all that. I mean, last year, 93 cents a gallon for gas. I put that into my truck for 93 cents a gallon in Georgia. So, it is incredible what they think that they're actually doing. What they think is going on with this versus what's actually reality. All right, let's grab one here from NPR for you guys. Transgender bishop steps into historic role in the Evangelical Lutheran Church. This comes to NPR via the Associated Press, but even if it's by the Associated Press, they still need your money, so make sure you donate. The big red button on the top will tell you where you can give money to NPR, so they can spread their communist ideals across the country. It's not your money, comrade. It's our money. NPR, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America has installed its first openly transgender bishop in a service held at San Francisco's Grace Cathedral on Saturday. The Reverend Megan Rohrer will lead one of the church's 65 synods, overseeing 200 congregations in Northern California and Northern Nevada. My call is to be up to the same messy, loving things I was up to before, Rohrer told worshipers, but mostly if you let me, and I think you will, my hope is to love you and beyond that to love what you love. Rohrer was elected in May to serve a 6-year term as bishop of the Sierra Pacific Synod after its current bishop announced his retirement. I step into this role because a diverse community of Lutherans in Northern California and Nevada prayerfully and thoughtfully voted to do a historic thing, Rohrer said in a statement. My installation will celebrate all that is possible when we trust God to shepherd us forward. Rohrer, who uses the pronoun they, previously served as pastor of Grace Lutheran Church in San Francisco and a chaplain coordinator for the city's police department, and also helped minister the city's homelessness and LGBTQ community. They studied religion at Augustana University in their hometowns of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, before moving to California to pursue master and doctoral degrees at the Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley. Rohrer became one of 7 LGBTQ pastors accepted by the Progressive Evangelical Lutheran Church in 2010 after it allowed ordination of pastors in same-sex relationships. Rohrer is married and has 2 children. So, yeah, I'm going to have to ask where my church stands on this because, as a Wisconsinite, I am Lutheran. You know you're in Wisconsin because half your friends are Catholic and the other half are Lutheran. So I'm going to have to go and talk to the good Reverend and ask him what he thinks of this because, well, you know what? We got to get done here because Stephen Ingramus is going live. No, actually, I don't think he's on today, is he? I thought he said he was taking a day off, but regardless, we got to get going here. We got to keep moving, and I could have this conversation for 2 hours in and of itself. All right, from Reuters. Google to replenish 20% more water than it used by 2030 in an amazing virtue signal that I don't think most of you really care about, but I wanted to just touch on it because of the virtue signal. From Paresh Dave. Alphabet's Google aims to replenish 20% more water than its offices and data centers use by 2030. The company said on Thursday, addressing concerns about water-guzzling tech facilities amid record droughts. We're pledging to a water stewardship target to replenish more water than we consume by 2030 and operate water security in communities where we operate, Google Chief Sustainability Officer Kate Brandt wrote in a blog post. This means Google will replenish 120% of the water we consume on average across all of our offices and data centers. Google consumed 3.4 billion gallons of water in 2019, its most recent disclosure. The company told Reuters it had not yet started tracking replenishment rates, but added that 20% goal reflects what is needed to return regions with high or extremely high water scarcity to a normal level. Google uses water to cool its data center stacks of computers and store the process, search queries, YouTube videos, and other data. Researchers have said a shift is needed as climate change worsens, droughts worldwide. The Mountain View, California-based company's data centers are located around the globe. Google plans to reach its new target by using less water at its buildings and helping them with conservation in surrounding communities, starting with those where water is especially scarce. Google's new measures include collecting stormwater for flushing toilets and funding removal. I'm told that collecting rainwater is a federal crime. That you can't do that because otherwise you might not use the water that you're taxed for. That's not a federal crime. I think it would be municipality crime, but I thought that was the worst thing in the world. And funding removal of water-hungry invasive plants. In Southern California, Google is even helping to install toilet leak detection technology in low-income housing to cut waste and keep the water cycling through the plumbing systems. Well, I mean, if it leaks, it's going to go back down through the groundwater and stay back on the water table. These are people who have no idea how a well works. Google will continue to help vendors reduce consumption, it said. Now, I make fun of this because it's tremendously stupid, because nobody understands how the water table and the water cycle work. And the fact that we have the same amount of usable water on this planet that we had 1,000 years ago because of the water cycle. We probably have just a little bit less because we've taken some of it into space, but we, for the most part, have the same amount of usable water on this planet that we did 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, etc. Because it doesn't change. And it runs down through rivers, becomes saline or stops becoming saline. It gets filtered, it gets silted. The ground will filter your water just as well as anything else. It'll get some of the salt out of it. There is a tremendously great cycle that goes with water. But with that being said, I'm glad that it's a private company that's deciding to do this, not a major government mandate saying that everybody must comply to these regulations by X amount. I'm glad that it's a private company because private industry can do better than the government ever could. Private industry is the way of the future and the way to get these things done, because they can come out and virtue signal like this and say, we're being 20% cleaner than our competitors, so go and do your Google searches with us instead of DuckDuckGo or Microsoft. It's a virtue signal. It is. I mean, I know that Google does sucky things, and they'll probably delete this channel at some point. But eventually, it's also a good marketing. And the virtue signal and the free market innovate way more than the government ever could. They're coming out with finding ways to do this without having to be told by the government, which we should all be doing. And then if there is a particular business that is known for being a polluter, don't shop there. Plain and simple. Don't buy their products. They'll learn. Once you start hitting their bottom line, they'll learn. So I always said, for the EPA, just eliminate the EPA, and the only government mandate on businesses is they have to have full transparency and full disclosure on how their waste is disposed of. And they get $1 million fine a day for every day that their stuff is not transparent. People will choose to shop at the places that are more environmentally friendly. We're an environmentally friendly country. They'll go to shop at places that are doing things the right way, the ways that are conservationist. And they'll give the finger to the wasteful ones, or the ones who are putting nuclear waste in the neighborhoods that they're trying to protect. So good on Google. It's not often I'm going to say that, but good on Google. All right. So I have no idea what's going on with this. I've been trying to get to this since last Wednesday. I figured maybe you guys would know a little bit of something about this. I know nothing about this. Theranos' blockbuster trial starts Wednesday. Whose story will the jury believe? So that'll be in 2 days this is starting. Because this article actually came out. Actually, this might already be going. Yeah, no, this is already going. Okay, we're going to skip this because this is a preview. No, let's read about this for just a second. The blockbuster trial of Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos' founder and former CEO, begins on Wednesday in a tale that has spawned a book, a documentary, a miniseries, and a coming movie, and put Silicon Valley itself on trial. The elements of captivation for, of all things, a high-tech blood testing startup are clear. It is rare for a CEO, let alone a former billionaire female CEO, to face a trial and 20 years in jail. The case has already been marked by head-turning, last-minute revelations and allegations, and Holmes' meteoric rise to black turtlenecked cover girl and media darling is matched only by her catastrophic fall from grace. At the heart of the matter are thousands of patients whom Holmes and Theranos are accused of defrauding, a mother misled about her pregnancy, a patient told to stop taking heart medication, and patients who received false HIV-positive results. Holmes, along with Ramesh Sunny Balwani, a former boyfriend who became president of Theranos, faced charges of 10 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Both have pleaded not guilty. But ultimately, the case is about stories. Which one the jury believes will decide its outcome. In 2003, Holmes, then 19, oh shit, she's the same age as I am, followed the contours of a well-worn path to Silicon Valley, startup stardom, dropping out of Stanford to devote herself to a singular idea, to revolutionize blood testing by running a rapid battery of tests from a single finger prick. Wow, it's almost like I've been talking for 2 hours straight. Modeling herself after her hero, Apple co-founder Steve Jobs, she adopted black turtlenecks as her trademark attire, adopted a strict vegan diet, and used laser-like stare to mesmerize investors and burn through doubters of her quest to disrupt the gatekeepers, make the world a better, and make a lot of money while doing it. I would say Winston Churchill really knew what he was talking about. He said, "Never give in, never give in, never, never, never," Holmes told Glamour in 2015, a typical example of the laudatory coverage she and her company got at the time, and I would say that I'm living proof that it's true, that if you can imagine it, you can achieve it. Along the way, Holmes tried to achieve her dreams by shortcutting the checks and balances designed to protect investors and patients. Theranos did not initially publish its breakthrough technology in peer-reviewed journals, nor did it share data with the scientific community. It also did not get approval from the FDA for its devices. Instead, Holmes took her company stories straight to the covers of glossy magazines, gave hype-building TED Talks, claimed that its devices were being deployed by the U.S. military on the battlefield, and lobbied to change state laws to allow patients to get their blood tests directly rather than through their doctors. Okay, I don't go to the doctor because, well, for the most part, I don't have time. I barely take aspirin. But before you make a major medical decision like stopping your heart disease or heart medication, you should consult your doctor. I don't care what some rapid test says. Some rapid test developed by Silicon Valley person is not a doctor. And always check with your doctor, especially if you're stopping or starting a medication, because somewhere in the way it could react with another medication, another health issue, or something else off of there, and you could die. So I know almost nothing about this case. This is when I found this last Tuesday or last Wednesday. This is the first I'd heard about it. But regardless, this kind of sounds like this needs to happen and this girl needs to go away for a long time. But I don't know the details, so all I know is what NBC News is telling me. All right. From the Hill. Entire police department resigns in Missouri. From Christian Spencer. An entire Missouri police department, including the chief and his officers, resigned, leaving the city of Kimberling without immediate authority. No gods, no masters. Citing problems like inadequate pay rate and not having the right tools to do the job, the department has local leaders struggling to find replacements, especially when rhetoric against law enforcement is high among some, Fox News reported. It will be a struggle to fill the police department back up with qualified officers, but hopefully we can start working on that soon and get that accomplished, Stone County Sheriff Doug Radar said of the resignations of Kimberling City Police Department, noting that most police stations are understaffed. What preempted the mass exodus, according to Radar, was Kimberling City Police Chief Craig Alexander's resignation on August 23rd. He wanted changes from the mayor and wanted to better himself, Fox News reported. Soon after, Alexander's resignation was joined by 3 officers and a surgeon, who, with their reasons for quitting being the absence of a police clerk to assist the department, not having qualified officers in the department, and wanting new opportunities with a better pay rate, according to NBC Springfield. It is being reported that some of the Kimberling police officers left to join the Branson West Police Department, which caught Mayor Bob Fritz of Kimberling City off guard. I didn't know there were many openings in Branson West, or there were that many openings in Branson West, because we didn't see an advertisement for police, Fritz said, referring Alexander and Officer Sean McCafferty taking jobs at the Branson West Police Department. The resignations were unexpected and the short notice disappointing, the mayor said. We're looking for officers, we're looking for a new police chief, and I think we'll be fine, Fritz said. Amid protests in 2020, police officers were pressured to resign to be held accountable for their actions, including murder, and face defunding from opponents who advocate the funding to go to other initiatives. Well, I guess we're going to figure out what happens in that leftist paradise. Now, I don't know, is Kimberling a big town? Let's find out. Kimberling City. So this is a city of about 2,400. It is... I can probably bring up the map for you too. It looks like it sits on a river, possibly a marshland. It's over in the southwest part of the state. Considerably south of Springfield. Let's bring this over for you guys. So there it is. It is relatively small, it looks like. So yeah, it's close to Silver Dollar City, Branson West, Branson itself, down a little ways away from Springfield here. So 2,400 at the 2010 census. So really, honestly, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say that they'll probably be fine. Because everybody knows everybody in a town like that. For the most part, they've got to worry about getting traffic tickets and bringing people in from... or people who are coming in from outside the city, who are looking to cash it big because there's no police. And there's still going to be a sheriff's deputy presence there. It's like the small town I grew up in of about 300 people in western Wisconsin. We had for a while I was growing up, we had a city police department, which involved one police officer who had bar lights on top of his tan 1988 Ford F-150. That was our police department. And then he resigned from being a police officer. He just did basic municipal stuff around the city. Changed his red and blues to an amber light. And that was that. But, we still had sheriff's deputies. We still had the sheriff's office, the sheriff's presence there. So it wasn't like the area was going unpoliced. Much to the relief of the moms, the innocent moms who, I don't know if my babies can play in the streets if we don't have a police presence there. We still have the sheriff's department there. And I'm sure that this Kimberling city, they're still going to have the sheriff's department coming through. They'll still be coming out, and they'll be making sure everybody's taken care of off of this. I hope this does kind of push into some of the situation of we don't see an authoritarian takeover, or maybe we see some of the sheriff's deputies relaxing on some of the laws here, but I think this place is going to be just fine, just the way it is. I think they'll be just fine. Alright, and the last one we will do today, before we get into the rules of acquisition, comes from CNN. Melania Trump's closest White House advisor to release book. This is from Kate Bennett. Stephanie Grisham, whose career with the Trump admin, including stints as East Wing Communications Director, White House Press Secretary, and Chief of Staff to Melania Trump, has written a book that will be released next month. Two people familiar with the project tell CNN. Grisham began working on Donald Trump's presidential campaign in 2015, first as a press wrangler, and later followed by the Trumps to the White House, where she was hired by Melania Trump to oversee messaging, media, and ultimately all the former First Lady's East Wing operations. From June 2019 to April 2020, Grisham served as the White House press secretary, where she was roundly criticized for never having held a public press briefing. The title of Grisham's book is I'll Take Your Questions Now, says one of the people familiar with the project. Grisham's book, according to both sources, will likely include her insight on several of the more notorious headlines from the Trump White House years, including behind closed doors effects of Stormy Daniels' scandal and other allegations of sexual misconduct against the former president. Grisham's memoir is one of several released by former Trump staffers over the last 2 years. It is the second to incorporate anecdotes of the First Lady. Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, Melania's former friend and senior advisor, released Melania and Me, The Rise and Fall of My Friendship with the First Lady last September. So, once again, somebody has come out and said, hey, I can make $1 million writing a book that everybody's going to be fascinated by it. Everybody's going to buy off the shelf because it's against the evil orange man. This is a grift. You're going to find this book very soon in the dollar bin at the Walmart because nobody bought it, because it's petty and nobody cares. Amazon will go out and buy 1 million copies of this and go print 1 million copies of it, and they're going to sit in a warehouse forever. Really, honestly. It's a bunch of horse shit. Amazon's going to pay this woman a lot of money for this book, and it's going to stall out and go nowhere. Alright. Last one. And then we'll head out of here for the day. The last thing we do on a Monday is always we read one of the rules of acquisition from the Ferengi, because the majority of us are capitalists around here, and, well, we have a species that uses capitalism as a religion. So, and I've always found this interesting going through this, looking at some of the cultural aspects of this and how we can apply some of this in real life as well. I still think it was kind of cool. Where did we leave off, by the way? Satisfaction was not guaranteed is what we did last week, which I thought was pretty cool because, you know, I can say your satisfaction is guaranteed and sell you a purple dildo, and then you'll look at it and say, well, this wasn't the right shade of mauve and my satisfaction was not guaranteed. I was not satisfied. And you like it in every other way. You just, you know, it was the wrong color. So, satisfaction doesn't always have to be guaranteed. We talked about that. Number 20, some of this does go on to the non-aggression principle, which I like, but I think this is one thing that we can look at here. He who dives under the table today lives to profit tomorrow. And there is some good and bad that goes with this. What I would say about this, now, I mean, when you look at the Ferengi, where they were on Deep Space Nine and the other Star Trek franchise, keep in mind that the Ferengi were supposed to be the main antagonist of Next Generation, but their comical appearance and the fact that they can be taken down so easily by noise and by greed led them to be just comic relief. But Deep Space Nine took a very, very hard look into their culture, the culture that they could have, and really expanded on them a lot. But one thing to note about them is the fact that they have a very, very small stature. They are not imposing warriors. They never have been. Yes, they have sharpened teeth, of course, because they're mostly insectivores and predators that way, but they are not imposing figures. They're small. They're mostly frail. They don't go a lot into... I mean, they sell weapons in a war because they're hyper-capitalist, but they don't go a lot into war. But this is a big lesson in pick your battles. It definitely is. He who dives under a table today lives to profit tomorrow. And this goes the same thing with your political movement, with your profit motive, with your family. I mean, if you're dead, you can't go off and sell things. You can't, well, sometimes you can as a martyr, advance your political cause. You can't go fight for the freedom of anything if you're dead. So, and I've always said this too, like with the Capitol Selfie Fest. I said this before the Capitol Selfie Fest, and I'm saying the same thing with this, whatever this September 18th rally that's glowing in the dark is supposed to be on the Capitol, that they're putting the fencing back up over, is don't bring the fight to the government. Do not bring the fight to the government. Because the government will win. They have all the guns, they have all the strategic advantage. If you want to fight the government, let the government bring the fight to you. Because you're not going to be carrying your political message if you're going to fight the government if you're dead. If you walk into a trap and they just come out and completely kill you. Now, if they bring the fight to you, you have the home field advantage. You know the terrain better. You know your neighbors better. You can band together better. You've got better strategic purposes. And they are stretched so thin across the country if they bring the fight to you, because they're bringing the fight to thousands of other people at the same time, that they won't have the advantage. So always look in, pick your battles, pick what's best and what's actually going to be effective to advance your cause, whether it's making profit or changing the way the world works. And walk away from the ones that are just going to leave you dead with no effect otherwise. So it's an interesting dichotomy of the way that people should actually be doing things in the world. Whether they run up guns blazing against the military, against whatever adversary that they have, and face almost certain death, or whether they strategically pick the battle, wait for people to come to them, and possibly win it, or at least hold them off, or hold the enemy off until they're exhausted and can't do anymore. But yeah, if you dive under the table today, if you pick the battle that you can't win to walk away from, then you live to have profit another day. All right, that's going to be it. We're going to head out of here for the day. Let's change up the track. Let's get out of here. Change the scene. Change the track. All right, well, thanks everybody who came by and chatted with us in the live chat here. I will, of course, write your names down and say a special thank you to you guys on Friday at the end of the show, where we'll also be going through some of the best and the worst of the live chat throughout the week, so always looking forward to that. Otherwise, we'll be back here tonight at 5:30 Central Time with the wonderful Trent Ortner, who's going to come out and hang out with us and talk about, well, the Biden vaccine mandate, among other things. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. That is 5:30 Central Time. Please join us. Tell a friend, tell 10 friends. Trent is a great guy. He's been on the show before. He does awesome work. He's awesome at analysis, and we have got a lot to talk about. So definitely come by and hang out with us for that. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow, 7 a.m. Central Time for more Contemporary. Until then, you guys, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.